Our last speaker before the lunch break is an actor and a comedian. Could I have his slides up? Patrick McKenna is probably best known to most people here as the nerdy techno geek in Red Green's show. But he certainly has many roles that he's played, and in your booklet they've been listed. But his latest contribution has been increasing the awareness about ADHD, and it's to this that he is going to talk about his efforts in this area and about this topic. Patrick, it's great to have you here. Thank you.
Mr. Humphrey, you have 30 seconds to get my uncle to say this. Sex.
There you go. That's Red Green, for those who weren't familiar. Is everybody familiar with the Red Green Show? A little bit? Okay, good. My topic is ADHD, but being ADHD, I'm going off topic. Because I've been sitting here this morning listening to all these great speeches and all the different things going on, and I started to plug in, why am I here? So I started to remember, well, Red Green basically was the most innovative place I'd ever been. And for those of you who know the show, you kind of think back on a lot of the things that we did. That was our mandate. How innovative can we be? What's our inspiration going to be? The original inspiration for the show was a show that was on 1,000 years ago called Red Fisher. And it was truly the most boring man in the world would sit and talk about fish on TV. And we watched, you know, because radio was staring back at us. So this was great. We thought this was terrific. So we have this idea for, wouldn't it be fun to do this show? Canada would really like this show. And this all came out of Hamilton. This is how I'm plugging it all in. This Hamilton innovation and how we apply it. So we go to CHCH and we say, this is the idea for the show we have, but we're going to need some money. So we're marketing ourselves. And they say, well, how much money? And we said, well, enough that we can get the show done, but not so much that you care what it is. That was really, because nobody was going to watch this show, we thought. It was basically for us. So we're making this show, and it was just Steve and I, Steve Smith and I, in the CHCH studios around the corner here, and we did 26 episodes in a week. Usually that takes a little over a year and a half, but again, ADHD helps with things like that. We did it in a week. We shot this thing, we aired it, everybody hated it. Pulled it off the air, it was gone. Well, we thought, well, that's that. Then we thought, well, people started writing in. You know, this is before social media. They were writing in saying, that was me, that's my uncle, that's my dad, that's this, that's this. There was this recognition. So we went back to the studio, and we had a hockey bag full of letters. That was basically our social media, a hockey bag. We said, reach into that bag, and any one of those letters would be a pitch of why we should be on the air. And sure enough, they could reach in, and everybody was seeing something different in what we created, whether it was the recognition of someone they saw, the ideas they liked, whether it was the sense of humor. There was something in there for a lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot of people. So we got another year out of it. And ADHD was another thing that came along here, because in my industry, ADHD it's about 80% of us in music and entertainment are probably ADHD, because it fits in that we don't have long-term place to sit down, we get to do lots of different things. It really fits our mentality, our scope of life. You know, same with emergency room doctors and police and paramedics, things where there's high energy, that's when we focus the most. So we go to Second City, that's where I was from, where Steve found me, and we hired a bunch of Second City guys to do the second season because they thought that would really pump it up. Now you got a room full of ADHD people trying to create a show, and it was basically like putting a camera on monkeys and squirrels. We had nothing done. We got nothing done. That's when we started to realize that ADHD was where the innovation and the inspiration may come from, but you need that other arm who's going to sit down and write the stuff, who's going to have the technology to get this out. It was that marriage that things started to stumble into my mind because I didn't know I was ADHD at this time. I only got diagnosed 5 years ago making a documentary about ADHD, and I was thrilled because I just thought I was weird all my life. But it actually gave me who I was and started to be more specific of who I was. So this show was suddenly fitting so wonderfully for me because you see the character. I mean, I didn't have to stand still. That's perfect. You know, I wasn't on medication then. It was just like, let him go. And I would go out and shake for half an hour. But not realizing the skills that you're doing along the way. Like we were memorizing 56 pages of material a night. And then you'd say it, you'd do it. And at the time, this is ADHD thing too, your mind seeks drama, lots to do. So I was doing Red Green during the day, and then I'd drive to Toronto at night and I'd do the Second City show. Second City show, Red Green, Second City show. This goes on for a while. ADHD, even no matter how excited it gets, it becomes a pattern. So it's like, well, I'm in this pattern, I'm in this rut, you know, maybe I'll try something different. And I decided I would audition for a drama. But the market didn't see me as a dramatic actor. They saw the nerdy guy from Red Green. They didn't want that in a show. So no one would see me for any dramas. It just went like this for a while. Then there was this other show coming out called Traders, and it was all about Bay Street bankers and things. So I said to my agent, you know, get me in on this, it's a drama. And she's going, not so much, not so much. It's, you know, it's kind of up there. It's like, just get me in, you know. So the casting director, they're the people, the gatekeepers, who let you in or not, she lets me in. But I'm the last audition on the last day. And anyone who's done marketing, you know that's not a good spot to be. They don't want to see you, basically. So I walk in the room to audition, and there's all these great actors that I've seen all my life on TV wearing fantastic suits, and they know the lines, and they're ready. And I thought, I'm done for. Because the ADHD mind starts to seek drama. So my drama was, I am not worthy to be here. And I was just panicking, you know. Then I look around the room and I goes, man, I don't have a chance. I had like a $149 suit on there wearing, you know, thousands of dollar suits. So I went into the bathroom, took the jacket off, threw my coffee on my shirt, untucked the shirt, messed myself up, went in and said the exact same lines they did, and I got the job that minute. And I couldn't believe it. But they gave me the job because I was like nobody else. The thing that I thought was my weakness actually was my strength. And that's something I've been able to apply the rest of my life. Because when I start looking at my life now that I know a little bit more about ADHD, I can start to apply when was the moments that was me, when was the moments that were ADHD. And how many times did they marry, and what I thought might have been a hindrance was actually a compliment and hindrance. For instance, when I auditioned for Second City, I wanted to have my own comedy club here in Hamilton. But, because I figured no one could fire me that way. So that was my plan. So I enroll in a community college, and I'm going to a business school to learn how to run a company. And I go to Second City, and I become the night manager so I can do the books and watch the show. Basically, a mentoring process at the time. Didn't realize that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing. And one day they had a cattle call auditions for just anybody can audition because they're looking for 2 people to fill some spots in the show. And I was setting up the theater, a room just like this, chairs for the night and this and that. And they would say, it's about 200 comedians coming in the room, and they'd say, 6 people up on stage, please. And 6 people would go up, and they'd do some improvisational games and things like this. And come on down, Greg. No one knew who I was or anything, so they said, 6 people on stage. ADHD and impulsivity is huge. I didn't know this at the time, but I ran up on stage with them. Nobody knew who I was. They didn't know I worked there. And they said, okay, you 4 down, you 2 stay. This one, I stayed. Like this went on for like 3 hours. And suddenly it was like by the end of the day, I was an actor. That's how I became an actor. There was me and one other guy got hired, like this 16-year-old kid, Mike Myers. I don't know what became of him. I'm sure he's fine. But that was the day. It was suddenly, I went from this to that just out of impulsivity. And I stayed in the show and it was great. But I had no structure whatsoever. I'm doing great. I'm having a wonderful time on stage. ADHD, I'm just having a good time. Everybody's laughing. But the producer calls me into her office one day and says, you're a lot of fun. It's great to have you here. But you have no structure. You have no foundation. So we're going to let you go. Because, and I'm getting all whiny and stuff, right? And she's going, I know what you're thinking. We have actors like you all the time who think, you're going to be here, someone's going to walk in, some producer, and put you in a TV show, and everything's going to be great. Well, that's not going to happen to you. You're not that type of guy. It's over today. Maybe go back to the door and hosting or whatever you do. I was devastated, but I had to finish my contract. But within that Second City show, I was performing the character Harold, basically, in a different form, but that was Harold what I was doing. Steve Smith walked into the theater one night, and he was watching the show, and he approached me afterwards and said, I'm putting this new program together called the Red Green Show. and I think you'd be really funny to have stand beside me. You wanted to do the job? I was like, yeah, okay, I'm ADHD. You always say yes first and then figure out the problems later. So I said, yeah, I got it. So it was so weird that the producer who told me a producer's gonna walk in and hand me a job is never gonna happen to me, just happened. So I suddenly started, again, I look back in my life and I realized there's a lot of people who are gonna tell us along the way that we're not gonna ever get there. That's easy, and there's so many of them. But sometimes fate steps in. And if you're ready when fate and that happen at the same time, if they collide and you're ready, man, show off. Just show off. And suddenly you're in a position that you didn't think you'd ever be in, and you're commanding it. So now I'm on the Red Green Show, and everything's going fine, and I'm doing tickety-boo this way. The Red Green Show is the longest lasting live action comedy in history. We were on the air for 15 years. That's longer than MASH, longer than Seinfeld, longer than any show in history was this show that came out of Hamilton. Because, well, I'm very proud of it, sure. But along the way, everybody told us we sucked. So we were fired from CHCH. We went to YTV, children's show, because I was very childlike, so they went, okay, we'll try you for a year. And then they realized, not so much, fired. We went over to CTV. They were just getting Comedy Network going. Okay, that'll fit on Comedy Network. That's great. Fired. Then we're kind of, we're running out of networks in Canada. We've been on all of them pretty much, because CBC was like, nah, that's not going to happen here. No way. That's not our show. And it wasn't their show. But it was terrific because, again, sometimes you don't know what fate is doing for you, because at the time, their show, Air Farce, was on the air. And Air Farce they were #1, so they had a lot of power. They walked into CBC and said, you know, our lead-in show should be that red-green thing. That's our audience. And they went, oh, no. And they went, oh, yeah. And they had enough power to do that. That's how we got on CBC. None of our persuasion, nothing else. A mentor took us there. It was up to us to stay there. And we started to outnumber them with numbers and audience build and so on. And then, of course, CBC runs around going, oh, yes, we discovered them, yeah. That'll happen in your life, too. But you got to hand it over, because you never do anything by yourself. It's all this combination of things that happen sometimes. And when it came to the show of, well, is it just going to live in Canada? What do we do with this thing? Because, you know, we have a certain number. It's not a large audience, Canada, so what do we do with this thing? How do we get into the States? That was always the question. How do we get into the States? So we'd go to these television conferences, and people would just walk by us and ignore us and this and that. Our first sale we made to Turkey. That's where we sold the show first, was Turkey. And we were thrilled until they told us the reason they bought it is because there's no women in the show. Okay, we'll take the sale. We're not proud of it. We're just saying we'll take the sale. But then we can kind of say, yes, we're international. We can do that. We can boast on that we're international. And then suddenly that led to another sale. And then Detroit PBS, just on the other side of the border, there was enough Canadians watching it that they bought it. It was very inexpensive to buy this PBS show. And it was terrific. So suddenly now we're on in the States. We could say we're on in the States. We're in Detroit. That's it, you know. But we could build on that, because PBS is a whole bunch of what David was talking about this morning, clusters. Each PBS station is an individual. They're not a group necessarily. They're under an umbrella, but they're all individual. So Detroit will buy us, but maybe Buffalo won't, or Des Moines won't, and so on and so on. But small areas started to buy us. And what we realized is that Toronto wasn't buying us, Vancouver, Montreal, New York, LA. Those are where we thought we should be. That's where the big world was. But who ended up buying us was Jacksonville, Florida, Iowa, Des Moines, South Dakota, all these little markets, the middle America that the show spoke to. Suddenly, we're all over America. And they all want us to come down and, you know, those pledge things they do, you know, and the reason you should watch us, you can just dial now, you know. We did a bunch of those, man, you know. So suddenly we're exhausted. This is where innovation comes in. We're going, we're tired of this, you know, and we're their #1 show, mostly on PBS things. We're bringing out Pavarotti. He didn't know that, but, you know. This is how many people were watching it. So we had enough power to say, you know what? We're here in Hamilton. We like Hamilton. You come to us. And they say, well, that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's going to happen. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put on a satellite pledge show. We'll challenge Des Moines to beat out Iowa. We're going to challenge all these markets to each other. And we shot it at CHCH, and it broadcast out for a change. It raised more money than they ever have in history. They had no idea they were that kind of powerful cluster. Either did we took a shot. But the innovation, the idea of red-green was constantly reinventing itself, trying to get that leg up because nobody believed in it a whole bunch of people kept telling us we're not worthy. But there's an audience for you somewhere out there. And just finding them and speaking to them. That's what we learned along the way, is there was lots of people who hated us. And we were never going to change their mind. So why, you get all these notes about, well, if you do this with your product and you do that with your product, maybe. Now you're changing your product to adapt to them. But that isn't what you brought in. That wasn't what your brainchild was, and that wasn't what you're proud of. So we said, you know what? They've already made up their mind. Forget them. Let's speak to the people who like us. Let's build on why they like us. So we just kept doing more and more of that. And the audience let us know what segments worked, what segments didn't. And we just kept building, and we kept building, to a point where we're suddenly in history being the longest running show. By doing what we wanted to do consistently to our own standards, because in television, you work in a vacuum. You're in a little tiny room making these jokes, and you hope people are responding. But after a while, you get enough feedback, positive feedback, you start to realize, I'm connecting. I don't know what it is yet, but my idea connects with a lot of different people out there. And being ADHD, I had no idea of all these type of things. And I didn't realize how many mentors and fate there were in my life. I had a grade 3, I was terrible at school. In grade 3, I was just, I was a mess. I also have, with ADHD, there's oftentimes like what they call a comorbidity, a coexisting something that goes with your morbid life. So, and it can be, maybe sometimes it's like OCD or anxiety or whatever it happens to be, but for me it's dyslexia. I have dyslexia. So not only can I not focus long enough to listen, I can't read it, right? Like reading out loud in school for me was terrible. They thought I was the new French kid. They had no idea who I was, what I was talking about. School and I were not getting along. So one time I'm at the 12-inch hot dog stand out there in Burlington, the Easterbrooks, I'm there. And there's Sister Ann, who is one of my teachers. And I thought, oh, man, I'm on a holiday. Give me a break. It's summer holidays. She's going, hello, Patrick. I don't got to talk to you. I don't have to. I didn't want to go to school. And she goes, you looking forward to school? I said, no, not at all. She goes, why? And I said, I'm just, it doesn't fit for me. She goes, well, what's the worst part? I said, math. I can't do math. I just can't. And as I'm describing this to her, she's kind of smiling and laughing, And I'm looking at her like, well, that's me. And then I realized she's not even looking at me. She's looking over me. And I looked, and I said, what? And she goes, I'm sorry, right behind you, there's a fly in the window, and he's banging against the window repeatedly, and that poor dumb fly doesn't realize he can't get out. And I said, oh, well, unless somebody opens the door or the window or something, I guess. She goes, oh, right. So it's not that the fly can't get out, it's just that it's difficult. And I went, yeah. She goes, so what were you saying about math? I can't, you're good. She taught me that day the power of words. The difficult and can't are very, very different things. But in my mind, I already set up, I can't do math. Therefore, when math came, I really didn't apply myself. First time it got tough, I can't do math. I put it aside. The power of words becomes very important when you start to realize when you're ADHD, because again, we seek drama, so we go for the big words, because it releases the norepinephrine and the dopamine in our minds to keep it active. And when it goes dormant, we kind of need something big, like I say about police and so on working, because it's big, it engages us. So we go for big things like, I hate this and I hate that. But getting over that, I realized I had to enlarge my vocabulary. The can't is different than difficult. And can't comes up a lot when you're trying to be innovative, when you're trying to be inspired by something. I can't do that because I live in Canada. No, I can't do that. No one likes that. I can't and difficult, two different things. A longer road, a harder road, one you're going to have to apply to all the time, but constantly remind yourself they are two different things. The power of words. Because when I was young, and they didn't know what ADHD was, but until 1972, it was just technically known as mild retardation. That's not a great handle for a kid. And they'd call me Mr. McKenna. I thought the MR was Mr. It's mildly retarded McKenna. I didn't realize. I was just going along with this like all the time. But they would say things like, again, we hear the drama. We hear things like, well, why do you got to be so stupid? That's a stupid mistake. Don't be stupid when we get in there. That's just stupid. So suddenly, these are the people who taught me that hot and cold and hard and soft, these are authority figures. They must be right. Therefore, I'm stupid. Okay, I'm stupid. Then you get report cards that say, Patrick would be better if he only applied himself. He's lazy. Oh, he's lazy. Yeah. And he's always talking. He's so selfish. Don't be so selfish. Let someone else speak all the time. By the time I was 9 years old, all I knew was that I was mildly retarded, stupid, lazy, and possibly French. I had no idea. That's the power of words. Just because I didn't know who I was, I let other people define me. And I believed that for years, until I met a teacher in grade 10 who saw me just floating around doing nothing, and he said, you should get involved with theater with all that energy. And it's like, no, I'm not dressing up and people looking at me. That ain't gonna happen. I'm so embarrassed of who I am already. It's like, well, there's lots of different theaters. So he took me and another buddy down to see Second City in Toronto at the time. And one night I got there, Martin Short was in the show. He was just in the regular cast. And it was improvisation. And improvisation was my ticket out. It was, my whole world just went, bing, I know what I want to do. I want to be on that stage. I want to be there. How am I going to get there? Because with improvisation, you're making it up as you go along, and you're really not overly responsible for the choices you make, and you're getting paid. That's a bonus for an ADHD. I'm in, okay? So my whole goal was that, and as I said, I wanted to open the comedy club and all the back doors of how I finally got on that stage. And finally how that propelled into Red Green, how that propelled into the Traders. And then they have these Gemini Awards. And Gemini Awards are, they're great. And I get nominated for Best Supporting Actor in this drama. I couldn't believe it. In a drama, not a comedy, a drama. Ooh, la-di-da. And I won. It was like fantastic. I was so, ecstatic. The year later, I'm there at the, I've been nominated, and I win the Gemini Award for Best Performance by a Lead Actor in a Comedy for Red Green. So, thank you. So suddenly, Red Green's been validated, and so have I. Two things that we're told were very unlikely. I go back down to the audience, and I'm just, vibrating with energy. An hour later, they call me back up on stage and say, Best Actor in a Lead Drama, Patrick McKenna for Traders. Like, what? I'm standing there with Best Actor and Best Comedian awards going, I'm basically soiling my pants, but you can't see that on TV. They shoot from the waist up. I couldn't believe it. And I'm not saying I performed for princes and prime ministers and hundreds of thousands of people in my career now. And the most amazing thing of it all is that I was told I would never be there. I wasn't worthy. I wasn't that funny. I was just loud. I was disruptive. All the things that people told me negative about myself, and I believed for a long, long time, actually turned right around by fate and being ready when the light shone on me. And I didn't realize it was going to shine. So there's those times in your life you have no idea what's going to happen. So the only thing I would say to you as innovators is be ready, because that light's going to come and shine on you one day. And be ready. Show off. Exaggerate and brag about who you are and what you can add to this. Because you never know who's watching, how it's going to be interpreted. But honestly, if you're here because you're worthy to be here. This is your story, your movie in life. Be the star of that movie. Don't be a secondary character. Be the hero. It's your turn. It's your time. So thank you very much for listening to me. Have a great life and enjoy it all. Thank you.